CDs, or some even do it by downloads and collect in their program all the songs you can find and all the versions you can find. And whatever you do, whatever makes you happy, that's the thing. It doesn't have to be records, it doesn't have to be CDs, it can be posters, it can be Elvis stamps, whatever makes you happy, it's important. And that is what is so great with Elvis, because even though we sometimes find Colonel a little bit too creative, he made everything, he made Elvis on everything, so you can collect everything. A few pieces that he did, one of the pieces that he didn't control, I guess, is the book that you're sitting with there. And Lars, please introduce the book.
On previous shows like this, I talked about university books from the 70s, from all those universities that Elvis played, and the yearbooks where Elvis was mentioned in, and there were a picture of Elvis or a review of the show or something. I searched forever to find anything from the 50s. He didn't play any universities in the 50s, but he played a lot of high schools, he played a lot of local fairs and so on. So I found a few programs from those kind of shows, but never a yearbook for any of the high schools. Until recently, I found this water-damaged book that it's a little rough condition, but I've never seen it before. And when you open the book, right in here is a picture of Elvis, Scotty, and Bill. And it looks like a basketball, what do you call this stuff?
Basketball court.
Yeah, it's kind of on top list. You have pictures from this show in January in 1955, but this exact picture I'm not so sure we've seen before. I just showed it to Ernst downstairs, and he was like, "We never seen that before." Yeah. So here's actually a picture that we don't know inside a yearbook from 1955. It's even before the Colonel.
Yeah, so it's even before the Colonel. So that's why it's in the yearbook.
And to find stuff like this, talking about collecting and what we talked about earlier on, is next to impossible, because first of all, find a book to look in is impossible, and then when you look through books from this period, you get so disappointed. Some of them are 400 pages or without finding anything. So it's like reading the telephone book. So when you find one, it's kind of interesting. And what is also a little interesting here is it's actually a local thing from Memphis.
Yes.
Masick High School is a high school in Memphis where a lot of people related to Elvis actually went to high school.
Yes.
So Elvis played, I believe, 2 times.
I think so, yes.
In 50 and 56 at this high school, and this is the picture from January 1955. So that's my latest discovery of yearbooks.
Yeah, you should see his book collection. Yearbooks is just part of it. He has a lot of cookbooks.
It's almost as if you didn't get out of high school. There's so many yearbooks.
You went to all the schools? No, but hey,
I have 3 boxes of yearbooks.
But it is what it is, and it can be exciting to some, and it could be less interesting to others. But what is important here is it's so early, 55. And for even somebody to consider putting him in the book in 55, I find a little bit interesting, because he was, even at that time, unknown.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that it doesn't even mention his name. It says Tweedledee.
Under the picture, it just says Tweedledee. So
it says Elvis. It doesn't say Elvis anymore. Tweedledee on the picture.
That's great. And to find something that is not commonly out there too is very difficult, particularly from like January 55. That's incredible to see something like that surface. Here we are 70 years later, and we're still finding things from the very early parts of the career.
Who would keep it? Who would keep it if they were not there, right?
Well, Grandma kept it. And then...
You bought it from Grandma?
Yeah.
She didn't tell me.
They found it in the attic or whatever.
Below the water.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. But talking about the 50s, now on, you come into the picture with the items you brought. Lars has another 50s item, but that's a little bit later than your items. Oh, you also have 60s stuff. But what you have found is also a collectible, also for Elvis fans.
These are partly Elvis fan stuff, and these are Western Union telegrams to Sun ordering singles. A couple of the singles are Blue Suede Shoes by Carl Perkins, One of them is Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash, so that's kind of cool. They're original to 1956. This is, in particular, this is very interesting. This is from January 25, 1952, when it was still Memphis Recording Service, before it was Sun Records. Sam was buying a piece of cable and 2 fittings to make a microphone cable. And the company here, W&W Distributing Company, was located where, Tony?
639 Madison Avenue,
Yes.
Tennessee.
And what's the significance of that?
The significance is that maybe around 8 years later, Sam Phillips purchased that property and it became his new studio.
That's right. So
funny.
he was buying products to help build the studio where he was for Sun Records, where we go and visit. And then eventually he bought that property that stuff came from and tore it down and built a new building there. So just, he didn't move very far from home when he moved from Sun. And it's really cool to have documents that tie the two together like that so well. I have a few other things from the 60s. These pink ones are Sun Records invoices where they sell the records and they contact their distributors and have them ship them out. Some of them are by Greyhound. They would put them on buses, a box of records, put them on a bus and ship them wherever they had to go. And the significance of most of these are, some of them are Sun and Phillips or Sam Phillips Recording Service, a couple of selector hits. The selector hits are signed by Sam Phillips, only it's not Sam that we know, it's his nephew who worked for Selector Hits. These ones are signed by a fellow called Scott Moore, who we know as Scotty. So he was working for Sam in the studio there, and one of them, he is doing the mixing for the Bill Black combo. This one here. So there's Scotty Moore working on Bill Black's work in 1962. So that's a kind of real cool connection back to Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's another pink. This is one cancelling some orders for a single that was U197. I can't remember off the top of my head which one that is, but that was from 1954 in March. And then this one is from January of 59, and this is what's called a rice paper. It's a carbon copy of the letter, because the original went to whoever was sending the letter, and then they kept the carbon copy on file. So that's a few of the things that I have. I only have these because I recently purchased them. I got them from a collector in the UK who sent them to Tony, who held them for me until I got here. And I brought them along to show Henrik and a few people, and Henrik thought it would be nice to put them up here. And then the last things that I've got before we go back to Lars, these are original labels. This is a 78 label, so you can see the size difference in the labels. And this is a 45 label. This is for I Don't Care If the Sun Don't Shine. And this little fella is for Baby Let's Play House. These labels were left over at the Paramount, the Paramount or the Monarch? It was Paramount, yes. Paramount, the Philadelphia pressing plant. They've been scattered all over the country, and some were also, I have some at home that came out of Marion Kleiska's personal stash. They had them in the cabinets at Sun, but Paramount also kept them in their cabinets. And when they were broken apart in the late 70s, they sold all of their records off. A collector that I know went in with 6 semi-truck trailers and took all of the stock that they had. Unfortunately, he didn't take the filing cabinets. Imagine all of the documents that might have been there. But those labels came out, and I've been able to gather them. I have, for this one in particular, I got a shipping box full of them. There are 400 plus in that shipping box. And to get a shipping box for those is incredible. And they're all the same, but they're all Sun, and just for daughter. So that's what we do on the Elvis workshop. We throw it on the floor.
Yeah, that's what you do. We wouldn't do it. We kept ours.
Don't touch my stuff.
No, I wouldn't touch your stuff like that.
Throw your own stuff.
I will throw my stuff.
No, but it's very interesting, and what I think it's, and it could be Elvis too. If you find invoices, I have a few invoices from the '60s with stuff that was sent to Elvis, and if you just can find it, because who kept it?
Well, and I have invoices from '54 and '55 that are semi-Elvis related. I have friends who've collected these, and I've seen photographs of them from where Elvis has signed them, or Scotty has signed them in '54 or '55. Scotty signing these ones, actually this one was signed by Sam Phillips himself, so his signature is right there, which is a coup to get those. Sometimes it has no signature, sometimes it has his signature. Occasionally you have Marian Keisker. Sometimes you get an MC or an MK for Marian Keisker, or an SP for Sam Phillips. That's all they signed. So there's little details in all of these things, and it's to me, again, we talked about being a geek yesterday, and this is me being a geek. I have probably, I want to say, at least 100 invoices of different styles, and each one of these, there's also shipping ones where the bill of lading, where the truck has to have how much they weigh and where they're going and what's in them and if it's dangerous and all of that. And then they're signed by whoever picked them up. I have a friend in Los Angeles who has close to 400 invoices, just the pink ones. So he loves those, and I tease him all the time because I keep finding them and saying, "Here, I got one you don't have."
Is that a part of being a collector a little bit? I mean,
Yeah.
Sometimes it is.
A little bit, we all do it to you other,
Yeah,
because we're all friends,
Yeah, exactly.
and it's not in a malicious way. It's in a way that it's
It
like,
is when I
hey,
do it.
well, true, and it is when Rick does it too. It's like,
Yeah, it is.
dude, would you believe this? And I'm like, oh man, and he goes,
Warren,
yes,
you collect Sun records.
I have a couple of Sun records. Yes,
Have you got an original Sun I Need a Man by Barbara Pittman?
no, but I know somebody who does, don't I?
In
Tony?
England.
Not done in a malicious way, because we're friends.
Yeah,
That's
of
right.
course. I like that.
That's right.
Let's continue a little bit, but thank you, Warren. It's interesting. Just stay here because I know you have input for everything. But Lars, you have something else you want to show. Now we're going back to strictly Elvis.
This time we move on to Sun Records, but actually with a Sun recording.
Yes.
Most of you probably know that I'm collecting every pressing of the American records, and some of you might know the difference between records without a silver line and with a silver line. And one of the rarest one with the silver line is Milk Blues Boogie.
True.
Absolutely nearly impossible to find. This is the regular one, which is a beauty itself, but not worth that much.
They're also difficult to find, but that is
Nearly
like a
as
holy
close,
grail
yeah.
almost.
And through my search for this one, all of a sudden I found it, and I was so lucky that I found it. Then when I got it, I had an extra big time surprise that made it 10 times
That's
more
a big
interesting.
surprise.
This is an RCA DJ Digest. It's called publicity thing for all the reprints of the Sun singles that RCA did, plus a few of the new recordings, Blues Way Shoes, etc. That was put with this single when it was shipped out. It's from August 1956, and never seen it before.
Yeah, that's a great piece.
Absolutely no trace of it. I've never seen a picture of it. I've never seen it on the
Even
internet.
mentioned anyway.
Mentioned anywhere, and that came with that single. So sometimes
You just get lucky.
you're lucky with the rare stuff.
And I've done that too. You open up an album and something falls out, and it's like the '56 picture that went with some of the first album, the Elvis Presley album. They're super hard to find, but I've opened up an album and went, oh my goodness, there's that one picture. It's about this big, and we get super excited about it.
Yeah. I think we showed it one time. Didn't we bring
I
it?
think
Yeah.
I think you've had one.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of hard to see them from here. You're more than welcome to come up here afterwards and take a closer look at the singles. Any questions?
No, they think it's very interesting, Lars.
So these Sun singles themselves, they're technically Sun singles. They were taken from the master tapes that Sam handed over in '55, and in November they released the Mystery Train on a white label, and the white label has a black line because it's the version of the silver line, and all of those were released. I'm not going to say all as promos, but I do have a copy of Milk Cow Blues Boogie as a promo from '55. So saying that we now have two, it's possible the other three are out there somewhere. And I collect both, the silver line and the plain one as well, because you have to be complete.
Yeah. You're talking to idiots up here, you know.
Geeks.
Yeah, geeks.
Fellow geeks.
Yeah.
Actually, the next thing, Henrik and I did a little thing on Memphis Mansion TV some time ago about this record, but I brought it here so you could see it as well. And it's a little bit the same thing. Until a few years ago, we only knew of How Great Thou Art, pressed as mono dynagroove. What that means is a way of compressing, or what do you call it, Tony?
Yeah, it's kind of a compression, the dynagroove. It gave a bit more oomph to the sound of the tracks.
But it was a format that RCA experimented with in the mid-60s. There's actually quite a few pressings with other artists out there, but the only one that we knew until a few years ago was How Great Thou Art with Elvis, which is the standard for that album in mono, not in stereo. And then a few years ago, Kiss & Cousin surfaced, also printed in yeah, of course, in mono dynagroove, but it's damn hard to find. I only know of a few copies out there.
I know money is not always interesting, but I think sometimes it is, because it gives you an idea how, because, you know, when you go to America, and to find an American version of Kissing Cousin is not impossible. You know, it's laying everywhere. It was an album that sold pretty well.
And this is the regular MONO pressing. This one you can find everywhere.
Well, how much was the regular? Ish.
$50.
$50.
Edition.
And in the Dynago? Just to put it on.
I wouldn't sell it for 5,000.
I was going to say I'd offer him 55
No, that's,
and get a big slap.
but you know what? It's just that everybody should be careful with their collection and with what they have, because sometimes a lot of people have bought stuff like that without knowing anything, right?
This is why when we go to a record fair or anything, we slide everything out and we look at it, because you find this. This is how many have I seen?
I've seen that one. I never saw one, but that one.
I've never seen one.
I heard about it, and I didn't hear about it until Lars had it, but that's all. Never was a rumor.
And another note on the Kissing Cousins, the first release didn't have this photograph, so it was plain down here, and they put that there to help fill in. Now there's a barn and a couple of other things here that looked kind of cool, and I don't know why they felt they needed to cover it up. But if you're looking for a cheap, rare version, the one without that picture is a good one to have. So look for that on this album.
But actually one thing, I just said that MONO Kiss & Cousin is not really worth anything. And that is absolutely true, because in this period, MONO was the way that RCA was pressing mono records.
Yes.
But when you look at, for example, G.I. Blues, His Hand in Mind, and some of the earlier 60s records, the reprints of them from 64 in this period with MONO, they are mega rare. So the rule is not that MONO is not rare.
And
Depending on the record.
Yeah.
I would also look at that nipper, and I think it may be a little bit low, because this is very close, that gap there. And if you look at this one, there's more of a pronounced gap. And so things like that. You can also find RCA released where they forgot to print the nipper dog, or they forgot to print everything down here, or they swap the catalog number from one side to the other, I have 78s that it swaps it around. There are 3 versions of one of the 78s. My Baby Left Me, because they swapped that around in different spots. And it's just, yes, I'm a geek.
No, but, yeah, you are a geek. No, but this is what it is, you know. It's like sometimes you... it's Gitte here. No, so we can talk about it. No, but sometimes if I explain things to Gitte, and she's very excited, and she's very, oh, it's good, and I'm happy for you that you found that, you know, she's like that, but she don't get it. And I get it, that she don't get it, because it is very nerdy, but it is, the knowledge is king. I said it so many times. It's important to know what you're dealing with, because and it can be a $5 record and it can be a $5,000 record.
But of course, there's also a difference between a spelling mistake or something,
for sure.
and then a different pressing.
Yes, absolutely.
With a different sound.
Definitely. The moving that around doesn't really change the value. It's just a variation. It's still the same record. Everything sounds the same. It's just generally it was on the left-hand side, but this particular record, they moved it to the right-hand side on one pressing, and then they moved it to the bottom. On the RCA, there's a lot more information can be found in the dead wax. There are stampings and pressings and numbers that you can decipher that with, and I am not deep into that, but I know where to find those when I need to. And then you can also look at like the albums. If you look at that, like the mono and the mono, is it binaural?
Sorry.
Mono and
mono Dynagroove.
Dynagroove. McDonald's, Memphis Mansion. Buying a burger from one of those. Eh?
Well, how much do I owe you?
Exactly.
Okay. No, but let's continue. It's just, I know it's very nerdy, but I also think it's interesting, and some of you may never look for this or ever think you would find one, but it is part of being collector, is the journey, is looking, is... you know, when Lars found this, I was sleeping. No, but I'm just saying that's how it is. You know, somebody is not paying attention, and somebody are, and that's the whole thing. And for Lars, more for Lars than me, because he's much better at it than I am. But the good thing is he's my friend. So when he fall over something that he already have, he says, "Henrik, I found something that I have. Is it interesting for you?" So I have my old. I have my old.
and I do that too. I send you auctions.
Yeah, sure.
Every now.
I know.
Not just Elvis, but Johnny Cash and
Stuff.
some of the other artists.
No, but hey.
And we're watching, like, how many feelers do you have out for auctions every month?
I don't count them.
I couldn't count them either, but it's thousands. I get feelers, I get emails. I have thousands of emails a month just from auction houses because it has the word son or it has the word Elvis in it. And then you've got to go to the auction and you've got to scan through everything and figure out why they sent you that. And sometimes it pays off and sometimes it's a complete waste of time.
But sometimes you go one direction and you find something else, like I just talked about. I send emails to a lot of universities and so on, and all of a sudden somebody might have another story.
All right, I'm going to give you all a hint. There's an auction coming up. I don't know if you guys know about it, but it has the contracts and letters from Bob Neal to the school that Elvis played in.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 auctions. One is for the early date and then one is for the later date. It was supposed to be February 1st. It got cancelled due to rain or storms in the area, tornadoes. So they moved it. The concert is March 1st when it actually happened, but these letters range from January 2nd, and in both auctions, it's all pertaining to the one show from January 2nd to January 29th, I think, was the last letter from Bob Neal to this school. And it's for me, that's super geeky. Now, these contracts have Elvis's signature on it, but Bob Neal signed that because Elvis was out on the road somewhere, so he had to sign the contracts to make sure it's all legal, even though he faked the signature. So, you see things like that. It's just like a secretarial signature that we talked about a little bit yesterday. So. They're geeking over something.
Yeah, we're
Lars
nerding. We're nerding again.
He's
But hey,
trying to get him to notice
but-
something and not sharing it.
No. He will in 2 seconds. He will in 2 seconds. But you're totally right. There's a lot of time spent into this. It is like we don't go play soccer. Maybe we should, but we don't do workout. Maybe we should.
Sometimes
but what we do go is we go for the journey. Sitting at night, watching.
Sometimes this is all the ramen noodles because that's all we can afford after we've dug into our pockets to get these things.
That's true.
Yeah. I've gone plenty of times where it's, I'm not going to eat this week, but that's okay. I got this great item and Henrik is going to be so pissed off.
Yeah. it's worth the pain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, let's jump further. Do you have another single, or is that for later? You want to do this now?
I think we should do this.
Okay. So here is a record that when I saw it the first time, I really didn't get it. But hey, Lars.
Actually, there's two records here. Most of you might know, let me take it out. Most of you might know about March of Dimes. Elvis supported March of Dimes.
And what was March of Dimes?
It was a charity, a children's charity in America.
Yeah, to collect
For
money
polio,
for
right?
polio
Yes.
victims.
Yeah.
And there's pictures of Elvis with both at Graceland and various places, and in
Yes.
Germany
Yes.
with polio victims. And he was promoting this stuff.
I'm here. Hey, it's time for a break. Yeah, this is a time for
But the-
commercial.
The only year when he was actually part of a campaign, an official campaign, was in '57, and some of you might have heard on various CDs or whatever the stuff that he said on the records, because this is first of all a 16-inch transcript record. That was in the '50s kind of the way that you made records for radio stations, so they could play the stuff and then destroy them afterwards. They were never for sale or anything. At least I don't know of anybody selling a 16-inch records. No. And for years, we knew about two of these records with Elvis from the same year. One where he sings "Love Me Tender," the studio version, it's nothing unreleased, and one that is kind of an interview disc. So it's two different discs, and he's talking on this one. I actually brought those just to show you. I just finished my collection of all three of these, because the interesting thing here is
And here we have the nerd.
There's actually one more.
The completest, thank you.
Yeah.
Not nerd, completest.
Yeah, but wait till you hear the punchline here.
And the very funny thing here is Elvis is not on it.
But it's the same label, so
It's the same label
he
and
wouldn't just
everything.
have two, right? So he had to have the third one.
Yeah, you've got to be complete.
It's like you need all the invoices, even
That's
though
right.
Elvis is not on
This
it.
is called being 110% complete.
That's right.
I even have the one without Elvis.
That's right, and that's what you need. It's like having you can get acetates of the Louisiana Hayride, and that's how we got some of those live recordings back in the late 80s, 90s, and 2000s. They were transcribed from those. If you have the one with Elvis on it, that's fantastic. But the radio show was an hour and a half long, so you've got to have 3 discs to have the complete radio show. It's completist. It's not nerdy. It's just
And
complete.
actually, I didn't know that there was a third one. Nobody that I talked to knew about a third one, and I didn't know before I had it in my hands that Elvis was not on it.
It doesn't matter, I get it.
You get it?
Yeah.
You get
I
it,
get it,
Tony?
yeah.
Then everybody get it. No, you would get stuff like that. So, hey, if you ever want to see the
Pick up that
complete
trash.
March of Dimes, and there's much more. We have to say there's much more of these, but that's from the year before or the year
Yeah.
after. But from
And
1957,
they look very different.
yeah,
You know, this one with the
different
little
color.
girl looks- yeah.
This is with the little girl. You have to find it. And could we just talk value here, just a little bit?
Yeah, what is the value?
You could be anything from, I don't know, maybe $750 to $5,000. It depends on
Quality.
It depends on the time, the
Yeah.
quality, how badly the person wants it.
Is that a factor too?
Yeah. Right now, some singles are depleted in value.
Yeah.
If you look at, like, I'm watching eBay values, I'm watching other values, and if you're looking at that sort of stuff all the time, like I do, some singles aren't going for what they were 2, 3, 4 years ago. because the guys who went out and bought what they bought and spent what they spent are sitting on it, and they have it. They don't have to spend anymore. No. So the guys who are trying to sell now are generally some families who somebody may have passed on, or they've gotten sick and they've moved them into a retirement home or something, and their collection is being sold by family or whatnot, and so the values are down. I don't buy these to resell them for a high dollar. If I buy them at $400, I'll sell it at $400 because I got the enjoyment out of it. If I'm selling it, it's because I want to sell it and pass it on, and maybe buy something else.
But actually, value is a strange thing, because
Yes.
if you want to buy Massive Dimes today, where would you go?
That's exactly right.
There's no auction coming up or anything.
And that's the thing. Sun records, because of the internet, are far more plentiful than they ever have been. Particularly with the Elvis movie, everybody's gone digging in and found them and bought them out. So the flood into the market has really dictated the drop in the price of them. Whereas things like this are basically, they went to multiple radio stations, so there were lots of them. But instead of 100,000 for a Sun single, there might have been 1,000 of those pressed. And they might have gone to a bigger station who then passed it on to a couple of smaller stations afterwards, and they held their thing the following weekend or whatnot.
True.
So there are less of those available, and even less because, like Lars said, a lot of them were designed to be destroyed afterwards. Just toss them out, get rid of them.
But I also want to throw in here, and I think it's very important, because you are right that some things can be affordable and be less money than it used to be. But if you find stuff that are in mint condition,
Oh yeah.
it's still very highly.
Well, it's like that one single I have with the label that has slipped down. Who else has got one of those?
No, no.
And if I want to sell that, it's big dollars.
Sure.
And it's only, I know only maybe 20 people in the world who are going to want to spend that sort of money. So for now, I'm just sitting on it, being a caretaker until I'm ready.
True.
There are other copies that I have that I paid $300, $400, $500 for. The cheapest Sun single I've bought was like $45 for an Elvis Sun single, and yeah, I can sell it for a lot more. But I've passed that on to friends in some cases who aren't as fortunate in finding them, or I actually just traded one off to a friend in Australia with some stuff. He bought me a couple of early Australian releases, and I said, here you go, here's a Mystery Train.
No, that's a way to do it too. But let's continue a little bit, because we have another guest coming on a little bit later. Lars, you brought, what did you bring?
Some of you might also have seen this one, but again, I brought it to show it to everybody. This is a disc that doesn't mention Elvis or anything. It's a red vinyl, 45, and it says "Season's Greetings from Dick Clark." Most of you probably know who Dick Clark is, right?
Yeah, he's a big TV mogul. Yeah.
He interviewed Elvis a few times
Yes.
while he was in Germany and so on. But what is funny is this single is, as far as I could figure out, it's from '61.
Okay.
And it was shipped out with a Christmas card from Dick Clark to all his friends and their business partners and so on. And it has a little bit of Elvis on. You know, in the early 60s and late 50s, it was a thing to do all those novelty records where they used like 10, 15 seconds of an Elvis song as an answer to something or whatever. And those are out there, and I have quite a few of them. But this Dick Clark thing, you know, I never saw it until I found it recently. And is it anything? I don't know. Does it mention Elvis? No, but it has Elvis on it. And it's from a guy who was connected to Elvis and, of course, released during Elvis's lifetime. I think it's kind of funny, and good luck finding it if you're searching for it.
It's one of those quirky items that completists are going to want, and geeks. And talking about Dick Clark, I went to a record store in LA a couple of years ago, and I was going through a bunch of singles, looking for Sun singles, and I found a bunch of Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis and Carl Perkins and a few other artists, and they were all Sun, and there were about 20 or 30 of them. And I went up to the counter with them, and the guy at the counter said, "Oh, you got the Dick Clark records?" And I went, "What?" Apparently, Dick Clark, because of his position, would be sent records all the time to sample them on radio stations and everything. And so he had a pile of records, and he had his assistant take them down to this record shop and sell them all off at like 50 cents a piece or something like that. And I bought all of these Sun singles, and they once belonged to Dick Clark. I don't have any paperwork on it, I just have what the guy told me. But that's a connection to Dick Clark, to Elvis, and to the Sun artists. So it's a cool thing. I don't know which ones they are anymore because I just dropped them in my collection.
Yeah, stupid you. No, it's okay. Okay, should we before we do the question answering session, should we show the advertise, because you can also collect advertisement.
Actually, did any of you read the new Peter Goralnik book about the Colonel? No? Nobody? It's kind of interesting. I read it 2 times. And it has a lot of information about how Colonel Parker worked and what he did and who he worked with. He didn't trust that many people. And the way he got Elvis into Vegas was not the Colonel calling the hotel saying, "Do you want Elvis?" It was through William Morris' agency and the people he worked with there. And they were working with a guy in Vegas called Bill Miller. Some of you might remember his name from the big billboard in front of the hotel. But the deal with Bill Miller was that he should put up the show in Vegas and he should do all the advertisement and all the work. And this advertisement is from August the 3rd, 69, meaning officially 3 days after Elvis' opening in Vegas and 2 days after them beginning to sell tickets, since the opening show was not further than invited people. And the funny thing is, it says Bill Miller presents Elvis, or Bill Miller presents, and it has all the names of Elvis's background singers, musicians, what they're playing, and so on. It's kind of different from other ads, and Elvis is kind of the small name here. And then at the bottom it says, "This advertisement is courtesy of Elvis and the Colonel."
And notice it's Bobby Morris Orchestra. I have a little funny story about the spa guy. Do you want to share it?
Yeah.
Okay, Rick took the spa guy to the cemetery where Bobby Morris is buried. There are several other people.
You know who Bobby Morris is?
He was the orchestra man for the first shows.
Joe Gershel.
Before Joe Gershel.
Yeah.
So he's buried in Las Vegas. And so the spa guy is like filming it, and he's like, "Who's this? What's this? Why are we doing this?"
He didn't know?
He didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And Rick's like, it's Bobby Morris. He said, "I can read that." Who was he? He was the first orchestra guy. Come on, man. So the spa guy not quite as geeky as he likes to think.
No.
He's a cool guy. I know him, so it's...
But anyway, that's nice. And even to find, of course, fans would take that out of the newspapers, and even maybe the hotel would make a scrapbook with their advertisement. You know, that was very common back in the day. But, you know, for somebody outside the inner circle to really find this, I think it's pretty neat, and in that condition.
Actually, I bought it from a collector who took it out of the newspaper himself.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to find this stuff because none of those newspapers survived. And I bought a few scrapbooks where they are glued in and cut out and so on. This one is...
Sometimes I cut Elvis's name and stick that somewhere else. And I have, back in the 50s, there were magazines, one called the Cashbox and one called Billboard. Billboard is still available. Cashbox, I think, was still available. I'm not sure. But they were both available all the way through to the 80s and 90s. Cashbox, they were both industry magazines, so mostly the industry read them back then. Billboard wasn't like it is now, where people like you and I will buy Billboard to see who's in the charts and read about our favourite bands. Back then it covered things like movies and radio and pinball machines and jukeboxes and cigarette machines and all those sorts of things. And they would preview records. So you guys have some of those early
Actually, I have
billboards.
I have a Cashbox magazine from '57 that mentions $1 Million Quartet by the name $1 Million Quartet.
Wow.
There was a lot of discussion earlier if it was a name invented later or something, but it's mentioned by name and picture in there.
So quite often there's an ad in there, and the first ad for Elvis's "That's Alright" is in one of the Billboard magazines and the Cashbox machines, and those things are very rare and very costly if you can find them. Sometimes you are buying just the ad, and sometimes you are buying the whole magazine. So then you have the decision to make: do I do this to it and take the page out, or do I keep the whole magazine? Because some of those pages, it's fascinating to read what was going on in the background of some of these things. You can find things like in these little bits, Colonel Parker is vacationing in Fort Lauderdale with his wife. Just information like that, just random stuff. And that got in there because Colonel Parker called them up. Hey, I'm going to be vacationing in Fort Lauderdale for the next 2 weeks. You might want to put down there, and maybe people will come and approach me or whatnot. And so there's that. You'll hear about contracts being signed or people moving from one label to another and everything. And they're very geeky too. I just recently bought like 30 of those magazines off of a guy who bought them only because he wanted the jazz section. And so I bought all of the magazines he didn't want that had Elvis because there was a jazz magazine that came in the collection and he wanted just those. He didn't want the rest of it. So I'm done.
No, you're good. Hey, I had
magazine.
No, it might have been big.
No,
Yeah. We're
don't
negotiating.
tell
now.
Lars. Tell me. Send it to me.
It might have been Big Beat.
He
There
does
was
know what Big
another
Beat is.
one. There was another one called Jazz Beat as well, I think, back in the 50s. And but these go back, and just to keep going, the first article about Dewey Phillips is like 1952 in a Billboard magazine. It's a fascinating read because it's talking about how pumped up he is and how pumped up he gets his crowd and everything. And there's actually, I'm going to give you guys a hand with this one. There's a website. I don't have it. I will give it to Henrik to put on the Memphis Mansion DK site, where you can go through a database of all the scanned copies of these magazines. So you can go to Cashbox, you can go to Billboard, you can go to various other articles and things. And I'll put up I'll get Henrik a link at some point in time, very soon in the next few days, where you can go and you hit the scroll bar, it drops down, you go to Cashbox, then it brings up all the years, you hit the year you want to do, and then you can go to the month and the week, because they came out weekly on those things, and they had a weekly chart. So Billboard in 1954, starting sometime in August, you can start seeing in Memphis, That's Alright is on the charts. And then Blue Moon of Kentucky. And then a few months later, you'll see Good Rockin' Tonight. You'll still see maybe Blue Moon of Kentucky. Then you'll see You're a Heartbreaker hit the charts in Memphis. Milk Cow didn't really do much. Then you see Baby Let's Play House. You might see the backing of that. Then you might see Mystery Train a little bit. Then you'll see I Forgot to Remember to Forget. And it stayed hitting in the top 5 for a long time before it finally hit number 1.
Cool. Okay, I just, what time do we have? Because I just have this crazy idea just to do something we haven't really talked about, and it doesn't involve you, Warren. I'm sorry, but could you everyone give one and thank you for turning in on this. It's something totally different. No, I got now it was mentioned because I'm just starting. What do you mean? What do you mean? If you got everything? No, but it was just an idea I got because you mentioned the Colonel. Actually, this should be a subject at one point too, but these Elvis Weekenders, because I think it needs to be. There's this book out by Peter Goralnik, and it gets some boos and it gets some ahs, like they're good. But I think that there's a few things. I just started reading, actually I'm not reading it, I am listening to it, audio. But I think it's pretty interesting. Very interesting. Because it gives a different picture in a way, right? And one of the examples, let me give you one of the examples, and I haven't gone there yet, but Lars was talking about it. At one point in the 70s, Colonel is giving up on Elvis. He's not giving up on him because he keeps pushing him. He is his manager. He keeps like, this is what we're doing. But I think it's in 76. We're talking about the tax. Colonel tells Elvis, you pay too high tax. You pay way too much tax.
Maybe you should say that this is not a story that Peter Gröning is telling about something he knows about.
No,
this is proven through letters.
There's letters in the book where you can see how Colonel writes to Elvis, and he says to Elvis, you should look at your tax situation, because when he made $100,000, he got $8 or something like that, right? When he made $100,000, he was paid $8. The rest was tax. And Colonel said to Elvis, it's stupid, because you have all these deductions. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and you get more out of your money. And you all know how crazy he was spending money, not only for himself, but for everybody he loved. So I think it's, and this isn't a part of Elvis's life where everybody said, oh, he was a bastard and he was this and that. But he was really trying to tell Elvis, you know what, for every money you make, you pay way too much tax. He was paying 92% or something like that. 90, can you imagine paying 92% of every money you earn? And Elvis was paying that. And the Colonel kept going on. You should do something about it. Because even though you make millions, you're not. And Elvis was what?
He didn't even respond.
He didn't even care. And I think, we have to take things into consideration before we kill somebody. I think he was a bastard. I think he cheated Elvis. I think he did. We know he did. We know that Colonel was doing, for example, with his boxcar productions, it was a 50-50 deal. But it was never a 50-50 deal, because before Elvis got his 50%, the Colonel always made sure that everybody was paid of his pay bill. Tom Diskin, who was working for Elvis, if Ed Bundy was doing pictures, whoever, or George Parkhill or whoever, they got their share before they split 50-50. And then Elvis had to pay whoever he had to pay out of his share. So the Colonel made sure that everything that he had to pay for was taken out of it. So we know that he was doing stupid things. But it's also and I think that is very interesting, that he's keep going on Elvis, and Elvis was in a situation, and we heard Pat yesterday, that he was not capable or interested. So.
But it might not be the most popular thing to say, but this book really proves it. That's why I said that I read it 2 times, because there's so much information in it. It really proves how many times Vernon, Elvis's dad, is writing the Colonel saying, help. We need money, we need advice, we need this and that. And it's not one letter and 3 years later another letter. It's again and again and again and again. And the Colonel is sometimes, even in 76, responding saying, are you sure you're ready to go work? Are you sure you're ready for this tour? And Vernon is writing the Colonel back, yes we are. We are ready from the 1st of the month. Please schedule shows. Because that was the only income Elvis had at this time. They sold the music catalog to RCA, and they sold all the stuff. They were doing no movies or anything, so without tours, there were no income. And Vernon had to pay all the bills, otherwise Graceland would be lost. Elvis was very close to having financial problems many times in the 70s. We love him in any way, but
the best entertainer in the world.
But
he was no businessman, and there's a dark side to it. And as much as we love him, actually, when Lars was telling me this, I was like, "You're an asshole. You ruined my night. I don't need to know this. Because we wish him the best, and we wish that he had. But we all know that he would have been probably not being alive today. He would have been 90, and that could have been the case. But he would have been older if he had taken care of himself, right? So, but it's just very, very interesting. So, if you can come up with a few other stories, I encourage you to get the Peter Gröning book on the Colonel. I encourage you to read it, because there's so much information, and it's not only Peter conducting a history; it's documented with letters from Elvis, and because Elvis wasn't writing letters, from Vernon to the Colonel. I encourage you to take it, either as audio, like I do, or get the book and read it. It's really, really interesting. Ja.
Spørge på dansk.
Ja.
Med hensyn til det om pengene med skatter og alt det der. Hvem tog sig af det? Var det Vernon? For han var ikke altid den skarpeste til økonomien.
Nej.
Fordi hvis Elvis ikke interesserer sig for økonomien, så gik han vel heller ikke op i med hensyn til skatten. Så hvem havde ansvaret for det?
Yeah, that's interesting. The question is that was it that Elvis's father was probably not, and it's not. We can't be honest, right? He wasn't the brightest guy. You know, he wasn't schooled, he wasn't anything, but he was still the father of the king of rock and roll, and he probably wanted to do the best that he could for Elvis. But you know, Elvis.
But Peter explains the whole thing. Read the book. He explains how the Colonel created a saving account for Elvis in '56. And how he instructed Vernon in using it, and the first thing they're doing is to take the money out of the saving account and spending them. From day one it was uphill.
Yeah.
And maybe because Vernon wasn't schooled with this, but they should just have listened to the Colonel with this stuff, then Elvis would have had a lot better financial situation. Not meaning that he couldn't buy a Graceland or anything, because he could, but it was all the things that he didn't do. He didn't take care of his tax, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. That made him overwork, and now the Colonel is blamed for that. And I just mentioned the RCA sellout of the rights in '73. There's letters in this book where Vernon is advising Elvis, where the Colonel is advising Vernon and Elvis not to do this because it was RCA who approached Elvis, not the other way around. And then 2 months later, Vernon, and this is in the middle of the divorce from Priscilla and all this, 2 months later, Vernon is writing the Colonel saying that if you don't do it, we ask our attorney in Memphis to do it.
And it's documented, and that's what I think is important. And everybody knows that Peter Guralnick is a classic, right? You know, of course he's maybe colored in a few options or ideas, but this is so very well documented. I really, 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 really wish you would all read it, because it gives you an insight that we never, ever, ever had before.
You have the book here?
No, I wish I had.
You get it?
No, not this. It's not sold in Denmark. I can get it, but you can probably, to be honest, buy it cheaper on Amazon.
You cannot get it for sale in the shop.
No, not for now.
You can. I think you can get it as a Kindle on Amazon.
I have that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can get it that way, where you can read it.
Oh yeah, in that way, so you can read it. I have this.
There's an audio book as well, but there's a Kindle version where you can read it.
For us who can read.
Yeah, no, but I don't have the patience. I'm sorry.
It's a very technical book, and you know, honest by God, I was interested in the Colonel for many years, and Henrik and I worked a lot with stuff around the Colonel and tried to understand how business deals were made and so on. And I had to read it 2 times to hopefully make sure I got everything that he was talking about. And it's very technical. If you don't know what William Morris is for Elvis, if you don't know who this and that is, then it's a little rough to read it. Yeah, but he's trying to explain things, and he's trying to document it. He's always referring to a letter, a contract, or something. It's not just his story. There's too many somebody's story about the Colonel out there. This one is really, really, really well documented. And for Colonel haters, it's not a good book.
No, but it's not about that. And I'm not. It's not my take to get anybody turned around. But I think Ernst has said it a few times, not today, but on earlier talks, that. It took people for years to forgive Elvis to die at 42, right? We all hated it, and it was like, and we had to blame somebody, right? A little bit. It couldn't be Elvis because he was perfect for us. He was the talent. He was the charming guy, and he was charming. He was all of that, but he has a side, and everybody has that. You know. Maybe you're not good with the finances, or maybe you're not good with this and that. I don't know. But Elvis was an artist. And we love him for that, and we don't even have to judge him because of this. But I would just love that everybody got a picture to put into it. You know, to kind of get the story right and say who said what and who wanted what. We knew for a long time now that Elvis was wanting the shows. When when the Colonel was playing to push Elvis to do shows because he wanted to make money. we knew for a long time it was the other way around, that it was Elvis saying, hey, or Vernon saying, hey, we need more shows. Like you said, Lars said, he's available this month, you know. So we...
Actually, let me give you an example of that. Everybody in here probably think Harem Scarem is not a good movie. In the book, there's a letter from Elvis thanking the Colonel for making the deal for Harem Scarem, because Elvis was working less time and earning $1 million for movie the first time.
Yeah.
Elvis was paid $25,000 for Love Me Tender, and he was paid $1 million for Harem Scarem, and that's only 10 years in between, or 9 years in between. That put things a little bit in perspective, you know.
Also, Elvis was the first actor to go over $1 million or for $1 million.
And that was the Colonel's goal.
At a time when Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, you know, Lee Marvin, all of those guys were not making that money. And Elvis was making $1 million a movie, and for like 18 days work on Kissing Cousins. 18 days for $1 million.
And but what I'm trying to say here is there is a letter in the book where Elvis is thanking the Colonel for his work with this. So if you think Elvis didn't like this, then you're wrong.
He might not have liked the scripts, he might not have liked the actual production, but he liked the cha-ching.
He was completely in charge of both the cha-ching and what he wanted to do.
And there's also another story, because we are running an Ian. I kept saying Ian, I'm sorry. But Ian is down there with the EP Enterprise shirt. Welcome, Ian. Thank you for coming. You will be here in a little bit talking about Scotland and 1977, but we'll get to that. But before we do that, I want to mention another thing, and I'm still not there with my book, but I think that on my trip now, 3 weeks to America, I think I will have the time to finish the book. But you said something that really, really touched me a little bit when you explained it, and that was in Elvis, in That's the Way It Is, that the Colonel stood up for Elvis. Tell the story if you can remember.
Actually, it's also from the book. The original cut of That's the Way It Is. They recut it a few times back in 1970 before they released it. And the original cut, of course, never seen this one, but there's letters and correspondence in the book about it. Was supposed to have a few more songs that is not in the movie right now, and then one of the heads of MGM, the movie company, is writing the Colonel that we should take out something in the movie, and we should take out some of the fans talking about Blue Hawaii as a bad movie, and so on. And then the Colonel is actually responding, and this is without Elvis probably knowing about it. If Blue Hawaii is that a bad movie, and if what we did with Blue Hawaii is that a bad movie, then please also delete Can't Help Falling in Love from the end credits, because that is a big hit from the movie. You know, then let's erase everything Blue Hawaii from the movie. And they're responding, you're right, we keep it. So the Colonel knew what he was doing, and he stood up for what he was doing. He made Blue Hawaii happen. That was not anybody else than the Colonel, and he stood up for it.
Yeah. I own like 6 or 7 letters from the Colonel dating from like 1951, 52 through to 59. So I've seen some of the correspondence regarding not just Elvis, but Hank Snow and Tommy Sands and other artists. And I've also been able to see some of the stuff in some archives that I've been able to visit. And so it's fascinating stuff. Like, this is the super geek stuff. And in my opinion, that book of Gorelnik's, I have not read it yet, but I plan to. I just haven't had time. The fascinating part for me are the letters. I don't care what he has to say at the start, because the letters tell the story. And if you read the letters with an understanding of what the position is happening, where they're going, you can see lots of things. There's lots of passive-aggressive language, and there's veiled threats here and there. It's interesting reading.
But there's also a lot of humor.
Yes,
yeah.
a lot of humor.
And again,
Yes.
but just to make sure you understand, I'm not trying to make Colonel a saint.
No.
I know he had mistakes and did mistakes, but so do we all. And,
the letters also have a language of their own, because he used Carney talk in some of it, and so it was like code words that they used between Elvis and him and Tom Diskin and whoever he was talking to. So certain words don't make sense because it's a made-up word, or it's a sentence that means something to them but has no value to what you're reading unless you're privy to the secret word. So there's that, and it's fun working that stuff out. The Colonel was good and bad. So was Elvis.
Yeah.
He was good and bad. You know,
No, he's not good.
we're not perfect. None of us are.
I am.
And I asked Hank, and he said
He said no.
that
That's
is
a lie. Okay, guys. Hey, is there any questions? Yeah.
Does the book go around his gambling addiction, the Colonel's gambling addiction?
Yeah, actually it does, but not through the letters because nothing is mentioned
Yeah.
in the letters. But Gorelnik have a few points there, and you should read the book. But it kind of concludes that that from one addict to another, it's hard to help each other.
Yeah.
And you probably know what I mean by that.
Yeah. Okay, we will have a break now. Give a hand to Lars for coming by and